Hey everyone, I've got a quick question for you. Have you ever felt like you're being pulled in a lot of different directions? You're struggling to make the whole life family balance thing work. A lot of extra responsibilities that you've got going on in your life interfere with your time where you could be putting it into setting your family up for success. Well, today we've got Rich Christiansen with us live, the great Rich Christiansen. I'll talk a little bit more about him in a moment. But he's going to shed some light on this subject of building family legacy and growing generational wealth. You do not want to miss out on this interview. I'll be right back with you. Welcome to the Not Your Average Joe Show. We'll get started here in a moment.
This is the Not Your Average Joe Show, where each week we bring you sales, marketing, and mindset strategies you need to get to your next level. And now, here's your host, international business mentor, Joe Soto.
We've got Rich Christiansen in the house. Welcome, Rich.
Oh, hey, thanks so much for having me, Joe. Man, it's been a while since we've been together, and so excited to be back connected with you and Lene.
Yeah, you were very influential in our entrepreneurship journey many years ago, and so I'm super happy to be reconnected here. You know, I people can read your bio in the notes here, and they can read the bio in the description of the show. But you know, for everybody who does not know who Rich is, he is a thought leader. He is an author. I think most importantly, he's a mentor to thousands of people over the years. You've founded and co-founded 51 businesses, of which 16 have become multi-million-dollar businesses and success stories. Each were capitalized with 10,000 or less. That's extraordinary. And you've done business in over 14 countries. And I know you authored a couple of books, including the ZigZag Principle, which was one of my favorites back in like 2011. So welcome to the show, Rich.
Thanks so much, Joe.
Yeah, for everybody here, why don't you give us a really quick additional background story to who Rich is, and let's dive into the subject that we've decided to discuss today.
Well, first of all, I jokingly apologize. I'm sorry for all of the content I provided that dorked your lives up, because I indeed, in some ways, dorked my life up. And sometimes we run this entrepreneurship thing too hot. It's true. I've had some of those visual successes, Joe, but it's not what's most important. When you and I were behind stage, we weren't talking about the business and the last $1 million we bagged. We were talking about, hey, I have another kid. And we're talking about Lene. And quite frankly, the remarkable thing about my life, I've been super blessed. I've lived the life of 10 ordinary men. I'm probably 190 years old in age life experience, but it's not what really matters. What really matters is I've been able to do this without dorking my family up, with my sons kissing me on the cheek and my daughter-in-laws hugging me, and with my grandkids adoring me, and my wife even kind of still likes me. That's what really matters, and that's the context we really miss. So I was going to go private the rest of my life. I was going to go hide and float in boats in Tahiti, and had an experience a couple of years ago that mandated that I come back and kind of share this framework of how to have real wealth, true wealth, and real joy and satisfaction in life, not just flying around on fancy jets.
Yeah, well, share a little bit of your recent experiences that you had, you know, where you said, listen, I got to go on a different journey here, and I've got to help some of these families out there, some of these entrepreneurs as well, kind of redirect attention and focus to how do we set up family for success. So talk a little bit about that, and then I want to dive into what you call the Legato framework.
Yeah. I think that this story actually goes back a bit, because indeed wealth is a critical part of it. And the thing I've discovered, there's all sorts of secrets, cool, crazy secrets that the average individual doesn't know about. Like, has your family created a family constitution? Do you have a family bank? Do you follow protocols of diversification in assets? Are you hedging against them? I mean, all these super smart things that now I'm kind of on the inside of these billionaires and the things they do. It's not that hard to do, but most people just don't need to do it. And anyone with even a little bit of wealth needs to be thinking about that. The problem is if you start there, you're going to lead your family and your trust network, and likely yourself, right into the bowels of Hades. So my story is actually a very unique one that I haven't shared until very recent years. My wife and I got married young. We had a Dodge Colt that had been totaled 3 times and $500 to our name. And very early in my career, I got tapped by my amazing mentor to this day. And I was put in a position of responsibility. And early on, I was earning more than my father and my father-in-law combined at the end of their career. And it terrified my wife and I. Scared us so bad that we went and moved to a poor neighborhood. And a couple of years in, a friend came to me and says, "This is the stupidest thing I've ever seen, because if you hide your wealth from your kids, they'll discover it when you die, and then they'll blow, if not them up, your grandchildren." And it put me on the floor. So I went on a quest to find a model. Couldn't find any. Found all sorts of models about wealth and retain your wealth and estate planning and blah, 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 blah. Found all of that.
Yeah.
But I couldn't find anything on how to maintain value. So true to every entrepreneur, my wife and I made this framework. We created this framework and used it to raise our children very, very privately. Didn't share with anyone. And the result that came out of it was miraculous, to the point that a number of really dear friends, I think several people in our network, started pulling it out of me. And I said, once again, I won't know this work till my grandchildren are raised. Then a couple of years ago, I had a really remarkable experience that I knew that I needed to share this. So this framework that you want me to talk about is the very framework that I actually raised my 5 sons.
Well, you said a couple of things in here, like, you threw in terms like family constitution, right? Like, no, that I don't know anyone who's ever said to me, I have a family constitution set up for my family. So let's talk a little bit about not that, but how, and then you said how to maintain values, right? We throw the word values around in business and in family life. And I know so many people, and people in my audience are so intrigued by how I currently, how we run our family, and we're very routine. We have a lot of children. You've raised your children using a framework that's helped them, leave the nest and generate their own success and be successful in a lot of different ways. It's something that I know that we admired of you when we first got to know each other. And you've been kind of that, you're the bar of how we're trying to do it. And I haven't been able to pull this out of you till now. So for selfish reasons, I want you to dive into this framework for me and my family, as well as for everybody listening who is either has a family and has children or will have. Okay. Because I think we're all going to benefit so much from this.
Thank you so much, Joe. Thanks for saying that. And I just acknowledge you and Lene. I saw what you've done, and indeed, you've done as good of a job as anyone I've seen. The difficulty is we don't have a structure or framework to raise. No. And so, religions, education institution, businesses, we have a framework, but there's no framework. So most of us run around winging it. And how would that work out in your business? It doesn't work out. So could I just riff here? If you'd give me 10 minutes, please. I'll riff and I'll fly. I won't even fly because I could spend hours and hours. As a matter of fact, I do spend hours and hours on it, but I'll fly at about 150,000 foot and zing really fast and hopefully hit some buttons.
Perfect.
So the platform of this framework is values. It's your values. You've defined them in business. We define them in the government. We define them in religious institutions, but it's very seriously thought and defined what your family values are. And then equally important to those values, that platform of understanding what your family values. What started the trigger for my wife and I was non-entitlement. We didn't want non-entitlement. We wanted love. So clearly defining the values. Then what do you throw away? The challenge with so many of the millennials right now is they're throwing everything away. That's really a bad idea. Hundreds of thousands of years have learned wisdom. In our family, we use guilt and shame. My wife's too, like guilt and shame, like peanut butter and jam. And so we very deliberately figured out the negative values that had been passed on to us that we wanted to extract and throw in the garbage can. So now we got a clean platform of values, throwing away the negative. And upon that, we pass and plant these 5 pillars, the last of which is indeed financial and all these secrets of the wealthy family constitution, 7-generation planning. And Joe, my suggestion would be to have my dear friend and partner, Scott Ford, to talk on that because he's more articulate.
Sure.
So I set up the preface so you can do the financial. right now zero concern about money. As a matter of fact, if I tried passing an inheritance onto my children, they'd be offended. They want to add to the platform of wealth and what it's used for, not taken away. So here's the 4 pillars that stand on top of the values platform. First of all, symbols. Have you thought to create a symbol? Does your family have a logo? Does it have a crest? Do you know what color each of your children manifest in? Do you know what their spirit animal is? Do you know what their negative or their anti-persona is of when they're feeling sad? It's incredibly powerful to identify. The LA Lakers have a symbol. The LA Rams have a symbol.
Family.
What's that?
A logo for your family, a crest.
Darn right. We don't brand anything else. If most people knew what they were branding and symbolizing, and the values it stood for, they'd vomit.
Yeah, without haphazardly, right? So we're not. We never.
If you know what Levi's stood for, you'd never touch a Levi's, let alone look at one ever again.
Yeah.
I mean, these companies have values, and it really, really matters. The Bloods and the Crips have symbols to identify. We as humans, we're so drawn to it. We have to know a symbol. And what's so important is where you stand. I'll throw that symbol up. I got to go really fast here, so I'm going to do this quickly. But my wife in the center and love, I surround and protect her. Each son pointing in. When my sons get married, then they surround their wife in life, providing the white space, and then these beautiful little ticks. My little grandchildren, 2, 3, 4 years old, everywhere they go, the chicken coop or the cabin, will touch and say, me, Everly, Uncle Nathan, Grandpa. They know where they fit.
That's
so
awesome.
I'll ask, do you have a family symbol? Do you have a family logo? Do you know what color you bring gifts back to your children? If not, you're really, really missing the opportunity to identify and bond the family. Pillar number 2 is the doctrine. Do you have a family mission statement? Do you have a family slogan? Do you have a family mantra? Do you have a family song? Well, guess what? The Bloods, the Crips, the Kiwanis Club, for crying out loud, has it.
Yeah.
But we don't think to do it in a family. Joe, guarantee your business has a mission statement.
Yeah.
You know what? It just eliminates 9/10 of the problems, not having to have a bunch of rules and removing conflict, because you've got to know your tribe, your non-traditional family, or your family. You need to understand what the behavior are. So the logo identifies you. The doctrine is actually what helps you know how you operate. The third, and I'm going really, really quickly here.
We're taking notes.
I'm going to go really fast, and if you want to know more, we can share more. The third is traditions. There's 2 parts to this. First of all, the cadence of really quick touch points where we turn. Family dinners. Do you have family prayer? Do you ask a funny? But you've got to do something really regular to return to your tribe, to kind of seek to know that you belong. If you don't do that, you get lost. That's why you always have every football game, rise and shout the Cougar, or whatever. You sing that song and you return to some cadence that gives comfort. Then you have the really special ones, maybe even sacred. Religions do this amazing. The university I chair does it amazing. You walk through the bell tower when you enter the university with the bells chiming, and then walk the other way. That's a very, very, if I even dare use the word, sacred.
Yeah.
Baptism, bar mitzvahs, confirmations, anointings, the president of the United States putting hand on the Bible as he takes the oath. Those are very, very special things that deeply bond. You want to really tick someone off, defy those sacred little traditions that are taking place. That's why when I pledge allegiance to the flag and someone kneels, it's terribly offensive. So you need to put into your family very, very sacred, I hate to use the word sacred, but that's really what it is, and very private things that deeply bond you and unify.
Wow.
I'll just give one quick example of that. When my daughter-in-laws come into the family, we go down to our legacy family cabin underneath our huge, big 250-pound beautiful crest, stand on the mantle, and I administer to them with my wife the Christiansen family oath of what they're expected to behave and do. We then present to them a unique, one-of-a-kind, very expensive piece of jewelry in their portion of the logo, at what point we hug and sing and have a big celebration. That's special. That bonds, the impact of that. So traditions is the third leg.
Beautiful.
All of those kind of they make sense, because you'll never find an institution that endures. Never find any institution that endures without those 3. Don't care whether it's a government, a school, a club, a no matter if you do not have the values defined, the logos, the symbols, and the doctrine won't endure. We don't do it in family. This next one I pulled really deep, and this is the one that is really fun because I brought back a lost art, and it is rites of passage. As I studied, there was critical ages in development, and it was 8, 12, 14, 16, 18, and then young adulthood. So based on the values, and I warn everyone, I know I overbake this. My rites of passage can't be yours because they were based on my values, but I think giving an example is really good. Can I do that really quickly?
Please.
We got time?
Yeah, we get
Okay.
time.
So
I'll go along for this. This is awesome.
Yeah. It's the bomb. I tell you, there's no greater need in this world. And I don't care how much wealth you have. And I am, the thing that's so amazing is I'm trying to get to the young entrepreneurs so they don't create the hell. Yeah. And I say literal hell because the people that I'm working with are the most influential and billionaires. And they're trying to dig their families out of hell now. Yeah. So get this right early and save yourself the trouble of 20 years later when you're trying to correct all the hurts and injuries. So the rites of passage, 8 years old, my wife and I would take each of the kids on a date, let them choose dinner for the first time, go to some terrible, awful spaghetti place or something that they choose, go privately and have an open discussion on sex, on drugs, on bullying, on technology, and open the dialogue and never quit it. So nothing was taboo to talk about and discuss, so that we were controlling the frames on the hard topics. Most parents don't talk to their kids, particularly about sex, until they're 16, 15 years old. Too late, already done. Yeah. So that was what we call the 8 is great date, the first rites of passage. At 8 years old, the soft part in the head closes. Kids start making conscious decisions on their own. So the age is 8. 12-year-old is the entrance into puberty. I would take each of my sons on a trip for 3 weeks. Wow. Adventure of a lifetime. The first week we would go ride the elephants in India, or go to the Taj Mahal and the Red Fort. We'd go climb on the Great Wall, or my fourth son wanted to go to the Pokemon Center of Japan. So go some crazy cool life adventure to deeply bond. The second week, we would find ourselves in a Mother Teresa orphanage, or my favorite, in Kathmandu, holding the little lost daughters. 100,000 little girls rescued from sexual slavery, or they're being killed because of the dowry, and their organs donated to India and China. That's where all the organs go for transplant in India and China. You do not touch humanity holding little girls in that situation and come out the same at 12 years old. So deep touched humanity and non-entitlement, permanently embedded, cemented, epoxy glued non-entitlement and understanding humanity at 12 years old. As we were coming back, we would come back very slowly to the real world, and we'd talk about what does it mean to be a Christiansen man. Because I had only 5 sons. So each son, we talk about what it meant to be a man. To protect. We protect the underdog. Provide. I wanted my sons to go out and make their own way and make resources so they provide for their families adequately. Protect, provide, hold safe space and white space for women to act in their power, and fix a lot of stuff. And so from that point forward, anything I'm doing, fixing, Dad, fixing, protecting. My son's out mowing lawn, providing, Dad, providing. And they know what it means to be a Christian man based on the values. So that was the 12-year-old trip. We called that the non-entitlement trip. 14 years old, I'd take my wife and I together would do this. We'd get each one of our kids on top of a major world mountain peak. Yeah. And it was a lot of fun, a lot of hard work, but 3 of my kids stared up the throat of Mount Everest. We've climbed Huayna Picchu, looking down on Huayna Picchu. We've climbed Mount Blanc, climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. And the purpose of that trip was private victories, not public victories. Private internal welling and inside power that people aren't seeing. And I can do really hard things in private. 14 years old, Joe, is the age where kids make the decision of what course they're going to follow in life. It's not 16, it's 14. And so that gives the power. My worst nightmare would be have one of my kids win the state football championship, throwing the winning touchdown carried off their shoulders at 17 years old. That's my worst nightmare, because I want the power to be internal, not external from the crowd. So that was the 14-year-old rites of passage. And I think you're aware of this next one I was very private about for a long time. My kids are all raised. I can talk about it. But the next one is at 16 years old. My kids each shook my hand and agreed they'll never ask for anything ever again. They'll pay for their own college. They will pay for their own missions. They will pay for the family vacations and their own car when they get back from their mission. And then at that point, I helped them set up a business. Each of my sons created $1 million business when they were still in high school. My second son created 2. And at that point, they've got control of their life and have a skill. And I never have to worry about them living in my basement, becoming serial killers ever again. So when they turn 18, they shut the business down, cut it off, because I believe every son must kill their father, and I wanted to do it on their own, never again with me. And then they donate all the excess funds and resource back to the charity they went to, typically when they're 12 years old. And then they go for 2 years learning another language and deeply and very humbly serving humanity. When they come back from that, they're 50-year-olds. They're not 20-year-olds. And the result has been, my sons will lap me 5 times over. My second son, he actually tragically just buried one of his child and stood in integrity like you can't even imagine. That's the private victory, with his wife sleeping on the amazing strength and courage this young man showed. But he just sold his second business and has 2 homes paid off, and he's 28 years old.
Wow.
My oldest son is a chief technology officer of $1 billion company, and talk about the love and integrity and goodness to his children. And I don't need to go on and all the braggy ego garbage, but because there has been public, visible things of great success. But more importantly, it's the integrity and the roots and the values and how they're behaving with stability and really hard things. They're not flippy floppy. Good Gadfrey, most kids are 27 years old. They're backpacking through Europe, still trying to figure out what the heck I almost swore right there, they're even going to do. And the result with my kids is they've planted firmly and making huge, meaningful contribution, not in words. So that's the fourth one is the rites of passage. The last one is the financial component. Now you understand what the values are and how you're behaving. How does it become a blessing to your family and a stewardship? I'll never give my money away ever, never need to. But each of my sons will have a board seat and posterities for forever to donate and bless humanitarian. It will pay for a family vacation every year. Every year, the logo gets updated into perpetuity with the family. It will pay for the rites of passage. So it's become a huge blessing, not something to be afraid of and run like it started out in my life. So I know I went like 1,000 miles an hour. Sorry for talking so quickly, but that's the framework, Joe.
Well, most people, they hear terms like, how do we build generational wealth? How do we build family legacy? And they think it's all about the 5th pillar and all this the financial planners that come into your life that are trying to, obviously capture your attention and your business. They lead with financial, and you
lead with financial hell. And I'm working with individuals that are. I could tell you story after story of people's name you would know that are weeping, saying what a curse it had been on them. If you do not get the stability right, you will drop your family into utter hell. If all you're doing is chasing money without the values, you want to talk misery. I'll show you misery.
I love this. And your framework, starts with these 4 pillars that you wanted to spend your time emphasizing today. I love this. Family symbols, what's your identity for your family logo, that concept alone, starting there, I think just stops everyone that's listening, everyone that's watching in their tracks. A doctrine, having a family song, a mantra, like a battle cry for your family. I love that idea. I've got to do this like tomorrow. Like I can't do this later. The traditions, we certainly have family traditions, but the way you talk about them, having a cadence, having that routine, having that sacred tradition that it kind of cements those values in your family, so important. And I took all these notes. The rite of passage is amazing because you've raised the bar for what that could mean for everybody, but not everybody has to go hike, the hike I could go to the Smoky Mountains and still have a really successful rites of passage with my children. But what you just showed was, here's some extreme examples of what you can do that really have a lasting impact. But I loved, squeezing out the pieces of that, like, getting people in front of what might be a charity they contribute to later in life when they're making money. Powerful.
Dead right. And I really want to point out that I was the Michael Jordan of doing this, and please don't expect to do it. It's just like, some of the high profile individuals like, no, you can't expect me to behave like that with you fitness.
Yeah.
And so, but you can go to soup kitchens, and please, again, don't follow my rites of passage.
That's right, though.
Figure out what your values are and make it simple. It'll have equal impact. I squashed the nail with the 10-ton gorilla, but you don't need to do that to have equal impact.
Yeah, this has been incredible. And, just not even, we're going to have a different guest, as you mentioned. You're going to recommend that we talk about that fifth pillar, the financial pillar. But most people start there versus laying this foundation, these foundational principles. Let's talk a little bit about what, you doing this for your family, setting up this type of framework and raising your family with this framework is, first of all, genius, brilliant. Thank you so much for this gift you're blessing us with. But then you turn this into a real solution and a real program, a real company to help people navigate this part of their life that somehow just gets avoided or neglected by, the majority of families out there. Like you said, so needed right now. Can you talk a little bit about the Legato platform and your program that you have? And I'll share the link in the comments for people to check this out as well.
Yeah, it was spawned honestly out of at what point I realized I needed to become visible with this. I started working with the largest wealth management firm, really a great firm, and I was teaching this to the most wealthy people, influenced families, and realized it wasn't scalable me doing it, and so started doing some seminars and again the wealthy families. But I really felt strongly that the very problem I created with entrepreneurs, with ZigZag Principle, it's like that's where we needed to hit. So indeed, we've created a full program. With all sorts of fun jump-on spots, little fun little cards, to a journal, to then a full program that walks you through nose to toes in a really fun way, exactly how I did it. It just took me like 5-10 years and hundreds of thousands of dollars. So a really quick, easy way to kind of get through and get your values figured out with a bunch of exercise, exactly how I do with these families. So it's called Legato Family. And Joe, I understand you didn't get one. And so Camilla, make sure we get Joe one. And Joe, if you'd like to give one of these special boxes away to one of your select guests, if you want to just email that, then we'll do one giveaway. The first program is just an online program, and I think it's like $500. If you go assisted, which we help you create the logo, I want to say it's like around $2,500. And then if you come to one of the events where we actually walk through, I think that price is around $5,000. And so we're going to give a couple of these boxes away. You got one, and then give one to one guest. It's legatofamily.com, LEGADO family.com.
And I think if they use the code Joe Soto, all one word, they get, I think it's 20% off. Killer discount. Thank you for doing that for everybody listening. If anybody who just went through what you just went through and took the notes that I took, this is an absolute no-brainer. I don't bring a lot of people on here where I try and really, other than maybe sharing their new books that they may have coming out, but rarely do I have somebody on here that I believe in as much as I believe in what you've created and what you've done for our family and inspiring us. And I'm glad we've reconnected again after all these years. I'm so happy I got you on this show. If somebody listens to this, got on here late, and you missed the last 30 minutes, you've got to rewind and watch this archive and listen to this. And because there's some fast and furious insight in here that can change your life. Like beginning tomorrow, if you implement these strategies in your family, if you never do anything with Legato, he gave you enough here that can really set you on a new path and direction. So thank you for that. But I would encourage everybody to go to legatofamily.com, put in the code Joe Soto, get your 20% off. And what would you say the outcome for somebody who gets this program and who participates in this?
Well, it's complete joy. The remarkable thing in my life is not what's visible, because I've lived a storied life, man. When I grow up, I want to be me.
Yeah.
But the real meaningful thing is my wife that loves and adores me. My daughter-in-law's hugging me and not letting go. My grandchildren. That's what really matters, is joy and love. I do want to back up 1 second. This is the first time I've done a business where I've been in all integrity. And this
Ooh.
business, I mean, take Legato, don't buy it or not. It really doesn't matter to me, but I would invite you irrespective. It's a great program and model. I don't think you'll find anything better. But that being said, if you're not inclined to do that, please at least go get a logo and put values in your family and open the dialogue and heal your trust relationships. The world is so under attack right now, and the family is just getting butchered. And so we've got to get this one right. And Legato, I'm really proud of that, but I want to make sure that there's no sales pitch and no out of integrity with what we're doing here. It's a pure offering. It's the first time in my life I've done things totally for the right reason with no agenda.
Yeah, and this is really impactful. This changes the world. My son asked me a few years ago in the car ride on the way to school. I love, taking the elementary kids to school because they could ride the school bus, but I choose to take them every day because the dialogues we have in the car are like life-changing, right? And also it's just pure entertainment sometimes with these elementary kids and what they say. Like when my daughter asked me one time if they had sports when I was a young boy. I'm not so old that they didn't have sports, London. But we have great conversations in the car. But my son asked me one time, he says, how do I make $1 billion? How does someone become a billionaire? I said, you have to solve $1 billion problem. And you're solving a big problem right now globally, bringing families together, showing them tactically how they can bond and unite. You called it, being more unified and bonded. This is life-changing insight. Thank you so much for sharing today. And hopefully I get to have you back on. We can talk about we can dig down into these pillars a little more deeply. Would that be cool?
Anytime, any place, anything for you and Lene. Love to do it. And I'm really excited to get you. I can't believe we didn't get you one of these Legato boxes, but I think it's going to rock your world. It's the best content I've been able to bring forward yet.
I love this. Thank you so much for sharing today.
Thank
Rich.
you, my dear friend.
We'll see you again. Everybody, I'll be right back with you this next week. We've got some incredible guests coming up, but thank you so much, Rich Christiansen, and God bless you.
Thank you, Joe.
Tune in next week for the Not Your Average Joe Show with international business mentor Joe Soto.